Welcome to Pink Kink,
where we are ready to guide you through the wild and wonderful world of kink.
I'm Princess Rara.
And I'm Dara, the Electro Khaleesi.
Whether you are a baby kinkster, a seasoned pro, or just here for the entertainment, Pink Kink will help you level up your kink knowledge.
Join us as we share our own wild, sometimes awkward, but always entertaining experiences and spill the tea from our combined 30 plus years in the private and professional kink worlds.
So grab your favorite flogger or wand.
Thank you.
And buckle up. You'll learn, you'll laugh, and who knows, you might just spit out your coffee.
Let's get this kinky party started.
Want more Pink Kink in your life? Join our Patreon and get ready for a whole lot of kinky fun and exclusive perks.
As a patron, you'll unlock access to our private Discord server where you can connect with fellow kinksters and chat directly with us. You'll also score adorable Pink Kink stickers and enjoy a monthly behind-the-scenes podcast packed with juicy tidbits we don't share anywhere else. Plus, get sweet discounts at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique, and on our online classes at Pink Kink Institute.
But wait, there's more.
More?
Our impactful and electrifying Pink Kinksters get extras, such as bonus content and free digital downloads. Oh, and let's not forget, the Pink Standard of patrons will be recognized as producers on both the podcast and on our website, because we couldn't do this without you.
Pink Kink runs on the love and support of our amazing patrons, so join the party today. Visit us at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast or click on the link on pinkkinkpodcast.com.
Today's episode is produced by our electrifying Pink Kinksters. Thank you, Jay, Witcherman, Brianna Lynn, Daddy J, Fabe, William P, Claire, Lady Blooding, Naughty and Nice, Butte Pain, Manda Panda, Kat, Stefan, Shadow Phoenix, Christopher, Brian, Ruby Riot, Enchanted Sparrow, The Wombat, Impact Hazard, Twitch, The Midnight Girl, Sinful, J21, Daisy If You Do, AK Harley Chick, Serenity, Belle, Eric, Lady Affliction, Pumpkin Pie, Ms. Tourmaline, S'more, Hacksaw,
Wee Mad Beastie, Devoted Night, 3 a.m. Thoughts, Crash Override, Iro, Kinky Bear, Sviper No Swiping, Barbie, Navigator Bard, Frost, Coffee and Chaos, Mr. Pillsbury, Peaches, Mighty Owl, Baby Squirrel, Lady and Lex, Chaos Monster, Jessa Lady, Ophelia, Drew, Birchbeard, Lady to Kitten, Cydia Lemon, Noir, Freddie Queen, Princess Ree, Miss Isiv, Godex Bunny, Elysium Rose, Avalia, Gloria, Nora Morapora, and Brix.
So, for those who listen in order, we had talked about the fact that this was a big kerfuffling week for me, and it inspired 2 episodes. This is the second of these 2 episodes, and I have to tell you, all of this kerfuffling, it made me want to just curse, because I was getting so frustrated. Like, I was reading all this stuff, and I just wanted to yell at my phone, fuck!
Well, shit!
Damn!
Hell!
Cunt!
Turd!
Piss!
Cock!
Twat!
Dick!
Safe!
What?
Safe.
Where are we going with this? What?
Safe.
Safe?
Safe is a 4-letter word.
Why? Well, I mean, it has 4 letters, but twat? I like the word twat, actually.
Yeah, it's the fact that so many people insist upon using this concept of safe when it comes to kink. And that is just problematic, right? So many people, they start off, or people who've been around for a while, they came into it hearing about safe, sane, and consensual.
Correct. And we're always like, wait, no.
But the problem is the concept of safety when it comes to kink is so much more complex than people realize. And it makes me a little hesitant and worried and nervous how much people are focusing on this idea of being safe. Because I think it gives a very false sense of security. It gives a false sense of safety, right? It is hard to really ensure anything and everything that we do is safe, right? BDSM is built on trust and knowledge and negotiation, but it can never be 100% risk-free.
Every time you say safe, I want to go safe light repair, safe light replace.
I don't blame you. Now that will be stuck in my head, so thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Right?
I'm so glad that I could return that favor.
So the point of this whole episode is going to we're going to talk about why this concept of safe is so incredibly misleading, why we really need a better framework, and how to approach risk responsibly. So this really kind of started off because somebody was talking about, I think it was on the same post where I said, your kink, your rules. And they had reposted something about, well, as long as you are safe and consensual, you do you. And I'm like, okay, well, what does safe mean?
Well, yeah, because to me and you, they're different.
Right? Everybody's got different safety. And just because something's not safe, does that mean I shouldn't do it? And if I'm doing something that you consider not safe, does that mean I can't do me? Like it was a problem. And so many people rely on this idea of safe. And when you rely on this concept, that's where things just go wrong.
I mean, you could argue that absolutely nothing in BDSM is safe.
There isn't, even if all you're doing is words. Right? I think many of us have proven from childhood trauma that the words said to us actually cause more damage.
Absolutely. You can have PTSD just from having somebody call you your stupid pants or something.
Yeah. Right? I mean, so let's talk about go over the entire issue and problem with that word safe and why I am semi-seriously, semi-joking saying safe is a 4-letter word. Right? Safe is a subjective term. What feels safe for one person could very well be terrifyingly risky for another. Right? Someone new to impact play may think flogging is dangerous, while an experienced bottom sees it as just light warm-up. The stuff that I do with needles, there are many people who look at that as very, very dangerous.
Hi.
And I'm like, it's just a day ending, and why? I don't think twice about it. And the problem with that is if I looked at, let's just say the needles in particular, if I'm looking at that as safe, then I may not do things to mitigate any risks associated with it.
Okay,
safe.
Like what?
Right. Well, let's just say for argument's sake, let's do something a little lighter. Paddling, right? Paddling is safe compared to needles. Right? Let's just say someone thinks that way. Okay. So I am not being careful to make sure that I'm not hitting too hard or that I'm not necessarily hitting in the right spot because, right, how much damage could it be? People think, I've heard in other people talk about, well, spanking isn't dangerous. Like, really? You hit the wrong spot? You hit too hard? What about the person who's doing the spanking? I was doing some spanking last night. My hands were sore. And if you're not spanking right, you're going to hurt your own hand.
I could literally spank somebody and dislocate my own wrist.
Yes, you can.
Turned the page of a book and I dislocated my wrist. So that would be super fucking dangerous to me to spank somebody.
The concept of safe gives you a false sense of security. Saying something is safe might make people assume there are no risks. The amount of people who I know who look at rope bondage as safe. They might, especially because they'll go, well, compared to suspension, right? Suspension isn't safe. That's risky because you're going off the ground. But just rope bondage where you're not actually leaving the ground, it's floor work, that's safe.
No, it's not.
Well, what many people aren't realizing is that nerve damage can happen in minutes, even if the scene felt safe the entire time. Even when tied by an expert, there's always the risk of nerve damage or circulation issues. What about breath play, right? It's often labeled unsafe because of the inherent risks involved in it. But what people might not realize is that experienced players are engaging in it with precautions. So is it safe? No. It's a calculated risk, right? Dara, you drove over here today, right?
Correct.
Is driving safe?
No.
So what do you do to try to mitigate the risks of driving?
I mean, I wear my seatbelt and I follow the fucking rules of the road.
Right?
And I'm not an asshole.
And all the new cars have airbags in them.
Oh my God. Do you remember back in the day just being in the back seat without a seatbelt on?
Yeah.
Because you were in the back seat and it was okay.
Right? So we all acknowledge driving is risky. and we just take steps to mitigate those risks.
Flying is risky. Do you want to know what I do to mitigate that risk?
You don't fly?
Fucking pray like hell while I'm flying.
Still have a greater chance of being in a car accident.
Even
Even with everything that's happening right now in our airs, you still have a greater chance.
I am so actually scared to fly in April because of all this bullshit. And if Musk gets a Starlink contract to do air traffic control with that shit, I might cancel and never fly again.
Well, I'll let you know because I think I'm flying the week before you.
Okay.
So
don't die.
It's not on the calendar, and you know how I feel about things. If they're not scheduled, they're not happening.
Okay.
Right? What about skydiving?
Oh,
or
hell
rock
no.
climbing or extreme sports?
None of those things.
Right? Do people call them safe, or are they just risk aware?
I am such a fucking wimp.
It's okay. You're allowed. People accept that these activities require knowledge and training and risk management. Well, kink should be approached with that same mindset. Informed risk-taking, not the illusion of safety. Now, we've talked about this before, so this may very well be a repeat for some of you who have been good enough to listen to us either from the beginning or at least in order.
We love you, especially if you listen in order.
SSC, safe, sane, consensual, is kind of going out because of the idea that sane is subjective. Dara will tell you all the time, the things I do, I am not sane.
I think I've said that in many episodes.
But safe. We don't want people to rely on this concept of it's safe. What I'm doing is safe. So what's come in place instead is RAC and PRIC. So RAC stands for Risk Aware Consensual Kink. And it acknowledges that all kinks have risks. And it encourages people to make informed choices. And by having informed choices, what we mean is you are aware of the risks. And as a little caveat, you are not aware of the risks because your partner has told you them. You need to do your own research. Do not rely on just your partner to tell you what these risks are.
Because the risk in that is they may not know something.
Right? Or they may not be a good person. I'm sorry to say it, folks. Not everybody who's in kink is a good person. And has innocent motivations.
Did you know that I actually got a cyst in my wrist once from tying a bandana too tight around my wrist?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
But some people don't know that. Hopefully, if you're a rope person, you do know that.
They should.
But.
All right. An example would be fire play. I think we can all agree fire play is risky. There's the risk of you being burned. There's the risk of a fire happening that you can't control and things are burning that shouldn't be burning, right? So even with proper precautions, there's still that risk. Now, RAC means you understand that risk and you accept it before engaging in fire play. And RAC also means you are making an effort to mitigate it. Now, what does that mean, an effort to mitigate it? Well, again, different people are going to have different ideas of what that means. For me, that would be having either a fire retardant blanket or maybe some wet towels. I had a friend, a fire top, who literally kept a bucket of water with towels soaking up the water next to the table he was doing the scenes on.
Did he ever have to use it?
So, not that I ever saw.
Okay. But at least, like, you have the option. You have the safety right there.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We have actually witnessed what happens when fire play goes wrong. It ain't pretty. So please have some precautions.
Right. If you are doing rope, does the rope top, and they should, have their safety shears with them? Now, again, here's an important thing. For some person, just the fact that the rope top has a safety shear is enough. For me, it's not enough. I need to know where the safety shears are. And are they easily and readily accessible? And by easily and readily accessible, I don't mean in their rope bag on the floor. I mean, is it in their pocket? Is it in a rope around their neck so they can grab it right then and there and there's no delay? That, for me, is the mitigation that I need before I will accept doing rope bondage. Now, the next step from that is, of course, PRIC, Personal Responsibility Informed Consensual Kink, which places the responsibility on the individuals to assess and accept their own risks. And this one's a big one for me. I go by PRIC versus RAC because again, right? My big word of the year is empowerment. I want to empower everybody on both sides of the slash to be responsible for the success of a scene. And the success of a scene includes the fact that you walked away with no harm done. So it avoids the idea that someone else, like the dominant or the top, can guarantee your safety.
No, and that's the thing that bugs me. There is no way to ever guarantee somebody else's safety. I could be doing everything in my power, everything in my wheelhouse. And so, for example, if you don't know that you're allergic to ionized metal and you get on my table and you have an allergic reaction, that's not safe. No, now
but sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And that's okay. But then it becomes my personal responsibility and yours to stop the scene.
I had a scene last night with somebody for the first time doing needles, and they were so sweet. But here's my only concern. They asked me, so are there questions I should be asking you?
Ooh, you should probably figure that out before you get on the table.
Right? Now, luckily, I'm me, and I know what the fuck I'm doing. So it was fine. But I used it as a moment to educate them and talk to them about making sure that your top is using proper bloodborne pathogen protocol and that I'm using sterilized equipment and I'm being careful with how I do things. I mean, I had to reach for more needles out of my bucket of needles. And so I took my glove off, threw that glove out, grabbed it with my ungloved hand, and now put on a fresh glove so that I wasn't touching my whole bucket of needles and then touching their body.
Yeah, with a used glove.
Okay. So these are all the things that are important. But again, if I know as the bottom, when the things that I'm looking for to make sure that my top is mitigating risks. But so talking about your somebody having an allergic reaction that they didn't know they were allergic until it happened. This falls under one of the newer anagrams, and I wish I could take credit for this. This is all from Kink Academy, and I love it. And it's called CRASH. CRASH. Consensual, risk-aware shit happens.
Okay.
Because that example you just gave of somebody being allergic and not knowing they were allergic to the materials until you use the materials on them.
Well, guess what? The only actual way to know if you're allergic to ionized metal is electroplay.
Right? But they consented to the scene. They were aware that there are risks involved in the scene. And then shit happened.
Yep. And again, it is both of our responsibility to look at that and go, oh, shit, should probably stop. But this is the reason why I keep Benadryl in my kit. This is the reason I keep aloe in my kit. By the way, did you know that some people are allergic to aloe?
That doesn't surprise me. Somebody's allergic to everything. But again, and Prick, similar to Rack, says you are choosing to engage in this, but you have full knowledge of the risks. To me, the only difference between Rack and Prick is, for me, Prick puts a lot more onus on both people. Well, Rack, we just say you're risk aware. We don't talk about your responsibility to making sure where you find out your information. So why does this shift matter that we're moving away from SSC to Rack and Prick? Well, I think it leads to a much more honest discussion about potential dangers. I think too often people were afraid to talk about the possible risks because maybe they wouldn't do things if they knew there were risks. And we're saying, look, living is risky. You walk out of your house. I have stairs leading out the door of my house. Every time I walk out of the house, I am aware of the fact that I could trip and fall downstairs and get hurt.
I walked out of the house and got pelted right in the top of my head by a flying acorn.
Bird shit. Like, right? Bird, you're out and birds are flying over you.
That's just rude.
And birds get shit on your head and you are aware of that risk. And I know you still go outside and you take that risk. And so I just, by saying we're moving away from the word shift as safe and creating and thinking of safe as a 4-letter word, we are pushing this idea and encouraging ongoing education. Because once you stop assuming things are safe and that safe is the same thing as no risk, we are pushing this idea of learning about these risks. And I think the more we look at the fact that everything we do is safe, is not safe. Everything we do has risks involved. The more effort we are also putting into learning, one, what those risks are, and then two, how to mitigate them. Because I know too many people who think, for instance, right, like we talk about spanking. Again, the amount of people who think spanking is safe. Now, is spanking safer than paddling? Yes, I would agree. Spanking is safer than paddling. But if I'm thinking of spanking is safe, then I may not be thinking of, well, what could go wrong with spanking and how do I mitigate that risk? But by acknowledging a risk is involved, I am much more likely to mitigate it and therefore less likely for the risk to actually come to fruition. So let's look at some real world examples and misconceptions, right? So misconception number one is if you use safe words, then everything is safe.
No.
Right? Safe words help.
It's going to be one of those episodes where I just keep going, no,
right?
No.
Safe words help with communication, but they're not eliminating the risks. By having a safe word, that doesn't mean I can now eliminate risk because I'll just safe word. Because a safe, let's be honest, are you safe wording before or after the risk has happened?
Yeah, that's sometimes yes, sometimes sometimes before, sometimes after, depends.
How often do you think people honestly safe word before the wrong thing happens or the risky thing happens?
No, almost never.
Right?
It's almost always after.
Because you've negotiated. So you've already assumed, you've negotiated, you've consented, so you've assumed what is going, you understand the risks and those risks could happen. But now you've used the safe word because the risk did happen and you want it to stop. But the risk has already happened. The problem has already happened. So safe word is not going to take away the risk. I mean, an example would be a submissive who's in subspace, right? If someone's deep in subspace, they may not even realize that they need to safe word. So does that make the scene unsafe? Because a submissive could potentially go into subspace. So do you not do the scene and take the risk that the submissive is now in subspace and cannot safe word? No. What you do is you take into account that this is possible and you come up with other ways to mitigate that risk. So experienced partners might rely on nonverbal distress cues instead of just relying on safe words. I will tell a potential partner, watch my toes. If my toes are curling, it means I am processing the pain. That is not the time to hit me. That is the time to take a small break, let me process the pain, and when my feet have straightened back out, you can continue on with the pain.
How long did it take you to figure that out in any way?
Probably a year or so because I couldn't see my toes.
You didn't feel them curling?
I was just processing the pain, so I wasn't aware what my body was doing. I think it was John who told me.
Oh, really? Okay,
that pointed that out to me. Part of it was also because my scenes with John are always on spanking benches. It's obviously much harder to curl my toes if I'm standing.
Right. Well, I've seen you do the thing where you're tied up and you're being hit, but standing. You do this dance maneuver.
Yes, and again, that's exactly what I do. Is I will tell people, here's what you need to look for. When I start moving around, I might stomp my feet. I might shake my ass. That's my processing the pain. And when I am ready for my next hit, I will return into place and stop moving.
So the toe curling thing is just like a really small dance wiggle.
Yeah. It's my toes wiggling because my legs and ass can't because I'm on a spanking bench. Right? And so that helps us still be able to do the scene. But what happens if I didn't know this about me? Does this mean I shouldn't do the scene? It's like I can't know this about me until I do scenes to learn this about me.
Because you did actually say that you didn't know about it for at least a year. So
right.
You were doing the scenes while not knowing about it. So, but now that you know about it, you have to tell people about it. That's your responsibility.
Exactly. Thank you for saying it that way, because that is exactly what it is. It is my responsibility to informed, because guess what? Informed consent is not just for the bottoms and submissives.
Nope.
Informed consent is for the tops and dominants too. One of my questions I ask people, are there any medical conditions or other conditions I need to be aware of that may affect the scene? And I say it particularly that way because I'm trying to tell you, you do not need to give me your entitled medical history if it doesn't affect the scene.
Well, okay. So for example, here, I have to ask that question too. And I learned to phrase it in a certain way because we used to say, do you have any, do you have a pacemaker? The one specific one that we always used to say, because if you have a pacemaker, you should not be doing electricity. Hands down, fuck that. No. Now we say, do you have any battery operated medical devices inside your body? And I've told this story before, and it is because I saw somebody on an electro table and they were having the electro done and they had it wasn't a glucose meter, it was an actual insulin pump. Now, through research, I know that a glucose meter, you can still do electro on. Honestly, if you're feeling iffy about it, you can pull the glucose meter off and you can still do it. But if a glucose meter gets short-circuited for some reason and stops working, it's not going to kill you. An insulin pump shutting off may actually kill you. So we always ask that. We say, do you have any metal in your body? And we have to follow that up with things like, because people always say like piercings. No, piercings aren't going to do shit unless I'm directly touching the piercing and it is the type of metal that conducts really well. It's not going to do shit.
Ooh, you also have to talk about the copper IUD.
Oh, we're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there. That's why I said my phrasing is, do you have any metal inside your body? So this usually applies to things like metal screws or plates. And then I have to follow it up with, when was it put in? Because if it's over 10 years ago, it's probably surgical stainless steel, which does actually conduct. But now they use titanium, which doesn't conduct. And it's a lot, you can totally do it. And then there was the incident with the copper IUD. We were actually doing an internal electro scene. And if you know anything about IUDs in general, you know that where they sit is just inside the cervix, which is a very, 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 very thin membrane. So it touches the cervix. It actually touches the
And the
skin.
cervix is not that far, as far back as you probably think it is, folks.
It's really not. It's on, I think what the average is 3 inches from the vaginal entrance. So that's why we always say it's not the size that matters. And if you get an 8-incher, it doesn't always mean what you think it means.
And having your cervix pounded is painful.
I've thrown up. I have literally thrown up from somebody doing that, like almost on them. So I don't play that shit. But anyway, I have to ask because that one time I was doing the scene and we were doing what we were doing and we were having a good time. And then someone grabbed my implement because it was his sub on the table. So he thought that was okay. And he shoved it as hard as he could all up in her, trying to, I don't know, punch her cervix or something with the electro dildo. And I have never heard a scream like that in my life. Were you there? I think you were upstairs.
I was probably upstairs at the time.
It was a New Year's party.
Yeah.
I think you were upstairs at the time. That was a scream and I don't ever want to hear that again. And we didn't know at the time about, what the copper IUD would do in that. So we now ask, do you have any metal inside your body? And this includes surgical. This includes IUDs. Most people say, okay, well, I have an IUD, but it's plastic. And I'm like, all right, that's not going to do anything. And it's also not going to do anything if I'm not doing an internal stimulation. This one was just like a weird circumstance where it was pressed up against the exact piece of skin that the copper was also pressed up against. So the electricity went straight through that little tiny membrane and right into the copper, which is pressing on the walls of the uterus. Because the uterus ain't actually all that big either.
Not until a baby's in it.
Nope. It's about the size of your fist. So that was just like the one circumstance that happened like that. And it was just like a series of this had to happen in order for this to happen, in order for this to happen kind of thing. It has never happened since. But I am now extremely careful about how I phrase these things.
And it just proves once again, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you don't know to negotiate certain things or even ask certain questions because you don't think it's going to be an issue, right? Like when we talk about triggers, sometimes you usually don't know you have a trigger until it's triggered.
Well, I know I have a certain trigger, but other people didn't know that I had a trigger, and then they triggered my trigger. Yes.
But you probably found out it was a trigger because it happened and you flipped out.
No, because see, I remember the exact time that it became a trigger. And I knew from that point on, this was going to fuck me up.
See, that's not usually the case.
Well, I'm not that lucky then. It was my ex-husband, the first one, holding my arms above my head and pinning me down and not letting me move no matter how much I fought. But there are people who that could happen to, and that wouldn't be a trigger for them, but maybe a word that he had said would become the trigger. True.
That's right. Like,
well,
you
like
knew,
people
it was a traumatic experience,
right?
But the idea that that was what would be the trigger that set you off versus something else.
I mean, it could be because people who don't like being called slut that could be a trigger. But if you like, what is it you said? You don't like being called slut, but if you call my slut, is
still not my favorite, but it's better.
Yeah. Well, like, so for another example is don't do shit like come up to somebody who's live electricity and touch the person without going through the safety questions first. Because if you're pregnant and you touch the person who has electricity, it then transfers into you. And yes, that happened.
Oh, people.
Yeah.
People.
Some lady at Exotica, she showed up and her friend was on my table and she ran over and immediately put her hand on the live person and I jerked the wand back. I was like, are you nuts? I was like, don't fucking do that. I have to ask you safety questions before you touch them. And then I went through the spiel. I said the metal in the body thing. I said oh God, I'm losing my mind. The question about medical devices. And I said, are you pregnant? And she goes, yes. And I went, oh my God, back up. No, you cannot touch her while she's on this table. No. I was like, are you serious right now?
Yeah. Back to why the whole thing about risk aware.
I mean, I know that she didn't know, but don't touch somebody who's on a kinky table anyway. First of all, because you're interrupting their scene and it's rude.
Well, and especially because she didn't know necessarily what was happening. And therefore, I mean, I'm surprised at somebody who's been pregnant. You're so careful because you don't. There were a lot of things I didn't know whether or not it was safe or not that I would do it.
And honestly, you have to err on the side of caution regardless.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there are people who feel that only unsafe people play without SSC. Well, plenty of responsible kinksters prefer rack or prick over SSC. And one of the good reasons is because, let's say, consensual non-consent. We'll go back to CNC, one of our favorite things, right?
Yeah.
By SSC standards, CNC play is probably not going to be seen as sane or safe.
Most likely not. And like I said, nothing ever is, but that one especially.
Right? But with extensive negotiation, agreed upon limits, it can still be responsibly practiced. But you do have to be aware of those possible risks. So let's talk about some examples, some stories from the community of things that have gone wrong. Okay, a flogging scene gone wrong. Now, when people think about flogging, they don't typically think about things going wrong. Or if they do, they think more about wraparound.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or pain being too much.
Or somebody walking through the scene in the back and getting hit on the swing.
Yeah, I had to tell somebody last night that they were in my hitting zone. I'm like, you're welcome to stay right there, but I could possibly hit you.
What'd they do?
They moved. Well, they were there because their friend was the one on the cross. And they wanted to, their friend was having a very heady time experience. I had a lot of scenes last night where people were pretty much like, can you pretty much use every single toy you have on these tables? And I have a lot of toys, folks, but they were so many toys that they had never tried before and they wanted to experience the different sensations.
I call that the around the world experience.
Oh yeah. So they negotiated flogging. Now this, if you ask me, was a mistake on the negotiation. My guess is they probably just said, is flogging acceptable? And the answer was yes. But then the top used a flogger that the bottom had never experienced before. So that even though everything was negotiated, flogging was negotiated, the different sensation caused by this particular flogger caused panic. And the scene had to be stopped.
Dear.
Now, this is where, we come back to the whole explicit versus implied consent. By agreeing to flogging, the top said this is implied consent because they've agreed to flogging, so any flogger's okay. Explicit consent would have been better. It's one of the reasons that I lay all my toys out that night. And I point them out to the bottom and say, is there anything on the table that you look at and you're like, either, wow, that looks so cool, I'd really like to try it, and anything you look at and go, hell no, do not dare touch me with that.
I do that too. Is there anything that you really want? Is there anything that you desperately don't want? Because sometimes they don't want the spikes, or they're terrified of the Wartenberg wheel and they don't want that. You also always ask, is there any place I cannot touch? Not hit, not zap, touch. Hands, implements, anything.
So even though it seems like everything was negotiated, there was a problem and the scene had to stop. So lesson was that this scene was not safe because of poor negotiation and the bottom never assuming the risk of I would panic at a different sensation.
Clearly the bottom didn't know that would happen. And, once that happens, there's nothing you can really do. But you after that, be aware.
Another incident, we had a rope bottom experiencing nerve damage, despite the fact that their rigger was very experienced and there were careful checks and check-ins. How are you doing? How are you feeling? The rope bottom still suffered radial nerve compression. Now, they recovered, thankfully. That's not always the case, but it reinforces once again that no scene is completely safe. My rope top, who I worked with and considered chosen family, had her sleep over at my house. I was her emergency contact. Like, we were super close. I trusted her implicitly. I still had to tell her at one point, I need to come out of these ropes right now because the pain that I am experiencing is not the normal kind of pain.
It's not the tolerable kind of pain that you were used to.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it wasn't even that it was tolerable or intolerable. It was not normal. Mm. There's sometimes, especially in suspension, let's just say you're laying flat and you're being pulled up. Mm-hmm. But the way you get pulled up is like half your body goes up and then the other half comes up, and half the body comes up and then the other half comes up. When you're laying flat and even, there's no pain. But when only half of you is up, the bottom half is experiencing extra pain because all the weight's on that lower side. It is intolerable pain. Other than the fact that as soon as that half comes up, it goes away. So it is really awful, horrible pain. And I breathe through it and work through it knowing it's not going to last.
Yeah, I would just give up. I'd be like, nope.
Okay. So if I know that there's pain, then I'm like, this is not normal. This is not the kind of pain that happens because of the weight distribution or the position I'm in. There's something wrong with this pain. Then I can let my partner know so they can get me down. So if you're relying on things being safe, you're more likely to have something go wrong. So how do you play responsibly when you're not playing safe or you don't want to use the word safe? Well, I say you can use the word safer. That would be fine. Or you just say there's risks and you talk a lot about risk mitigation and risks, right? And you mitigate the risk through negotiation. Never assuming a partner knows your limits. Make sure you're spelling them out. Using pre-scene checklists to make sure that nothing is overlooked. You mitigate risks by talking about communication during the play, checking in, using nonverbal cues, and agreeing on predetermined signals. One of the things that I talk a lot about when I am negotiating for demo scenes is I say to them, I not only say I use the traffic light system, but I also tell them what each color means. And I can tell sometimes they're looking at me like, yeah, well, duh. But I don't want to assume.
We've talked about this before. Yellow can sometimes mean stop doing it in that spot. Please move. Or it can mean I need a 2-minute break.
And I know people who red doesn't necessarily mean the scene's over. Their red is more like yellow, where it is, hold on, we got a problem, we got to fix it. So for me, my answer is always green means go, yellow means check in with me, there's an issue, it needs to be dealt with. And red means scene is done.
Full stop.
Full stop. Scene is over, right? But then I also say to them, but because I don't know you that well, we've never played before, I'm not necessarily able to recognize your body cues. I want you to use plain language. You can use whatever words necessary to get your point across. I said, you can tell me, stop, no, don't, slow down. I don't like that toy. Not in that spot. I said, but you can also tell me more, harder, right? Whatever you need to share with me what you are feeling at that time so I could make a decision, right?
You need to make an informed decision. This is part of it.
Meanwhile, then I play with Naughty and Nice, who at one point goes, fuck. And I said to her, fuck's not a safe word.
But that's because you guys have that relationship and you have that knowledge of each other.
Right. And I know her body signals. So I also know the tone of her voice. So I know the difference between fuck that hurt you, bitch, versus fuck there's a problem. So for her, I can joke around and say fuck is not a safe word. For any of my demo bottoms that I'm playing with for the first time, they say fuck. I joke around. They'll say ouch. And I will actually stop and go, is that a good ouch or a bad ouch? Right?
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
Naughty and Nice goes, ouch. And I'll go, you're welcome.
She says, ow, God damn it. And you're like, oh, so that means harder?
Right? My running joke is always, don't worry, this is going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt me.
And she likes it that way.
I do. I think I said, you're welcome a lot last night to Naughty and Nice as I made her say, fuck. So yeah, by not using the word safe, you're going to put the emphasis on education over assumptions. So for instance, you're going to take classes. I highly recommend, tops especially, but anybody involved in kink, learn first aid, please.
Yes.
Right? Especially for instance, I as a blood player, I who intentionally make people bleed, whether it be through needles, staples, spiked paddles, I need first aid knowledge on how to deal with the blood and bloodborne pathogens and understand the safety around that, right? Rope bondage classes will help teach where you should and should not tie to avoid nerve damage. Impact play classes will cover different materials and their effects in the body. I know you in your electro classes have talked about the importance of avoiding medical devices.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. We also talk about avoiding putting it on your face, and I feel like that would be for obvious reasons. And then I go on TikTok and I see shit where they're putting it on a face. And I cannot. I can't. It's promoting not just bullshit, but insanely, I'm saying that on purpose, unsafe practices that can be avoided.
We want to make sure that submissives feel empowered to refuse something that feels too risky. And the reason I'm saying submissive versus bottom in this instance is because, and I could be wrong, it has been known to happen once in a blue moon, with that inherent power exchange and power imbalance, submissives often have more difficulty in saying no because they don't want to upset their dominant. They're worried that if they say no, their dynamic may end or they might have difficulty. Bottoms seem to not that they don't, just not as often have that difficulty.
All I'm saying is if you're submissive and you are having problems saying no to your dominant, that's a problem. That should not be a thing that you ever fear to say.
A dominant should recognize, and this is for dominants and tops, please recognize when you don't have the skills to do something safely. Notice I'm not saying safe, safely, which means you're not adding to the risks. So some things there are just basic risks for. But if somebody incompetent is doing it, then it's not just the inherent risks to that. There's extra risks.
I had a guy last risque get on my table and explain to me that he's not a bottom He is a top, and he wants to learn how to do electro, so he figured he should feel it from the bottom's perspective first before he thought about getting into it and taking classes. I was like, holy shit, you're amazing. Like, look at you go. That's absolute perfection.
I have had the occasional impact top bottom for me because they did want to try how different things feel.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I am not somebody who feels you can't be a top until you've been a bottom. I don't feel that way. But I will tell you, as somebody who started as a bottom and become a top, I feel having been a bottom makes me a much better top.
I just feel like you need to experience what the bottom feels if for whatever kink it is that you're doing. Because if you do, like, I keep saying you can't top electro if you don't like the buzzy buzz feeling and the shocks. You physically can't, because how are you supposed to do anything? You can use the implements, yes, but all the better sensations are the ones where you actually have to feel it yourself.
Well, and it's also if you have somebody who's new and they ask you, how does it feel? And if you haven't experienced it. So for instance, right, I did endorphin buttons last night. I have had them done to me, but they've never worked on me. And so part of when I negotiate to do an endorphin button, I do tell them this may work on you, this may not. And people are like, well, how does it feel? And I have to be honest, well, I've never experienced it. I said, but this is what others have told me it feels like.
So what do you tell them? I actually have done it. It just hasn't worked on me?
Yes.
Okay. Like, I'm one of those rare people that it's meh.
I've had them on me and I'm like, I'm waiting for the endorphins to hit.
Well, you get endorphins just from the needles themselves. So you could have been already endorphed.
Yeah. But this is, listen, I watched somebody's eyes roll in the back of their head last night. It was really funny. He's sitting there and he's going, no, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. And whoa. His partner who was there standing and watching this whole thing, the two of us just burst into laughter because he was like so arrogant about it. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. Whoa.
When
and then
it
got
hits.
hit so bad he had to lie down.
Aw.
Because he was like, whoa, like the world was spinning.
See, and that's the kind of thing, like, I would take that and I'd be like, okay, I don't think I'm going to do any more kink tonight. That happened to me when I did knives for the first time. You remember?
Yeah.
I was high as fuck and it was glorious, but I couldn't do any more kink that night because I was so fucking, what do you call it, lifted?
I've almost never had that happen. But as in no shock to anybody who's been listening for a while, I'm an anomaly. There are so many people I know who switch topping and bottoming, and they have a very specific way of doing it because they can only switch that way, right? Like I have friends who they have to top first and bottom last because once they bottom, they're done. And
Well,
I'm like, I could literally go top, bottom, bottom. There's no preference for me.
So when I did my threesome with Horsecock and Tiger, we actually had it negotiated in the order in which we would bottom for this because Highland Tiger and I could switch back and forth. So she went first. I went second because I think I did top, bottom, top. And then the reason we had to negotiate this very carefully was because Horsecock knew that once he bottomed, he wasn't coming back from that. He could not switch back. He can go top to bottom, but he couldn't go bottom to top. Yeah. So we had to make that really, really careful.
The only time that I really could not go back to topping afterward is if the scene that I bottomed for was incredibly intense. So, for example, when I did the 302 needles, I was done. Now, part of the reason I was also done is because, damn, my boobs hurt. And like even just a speed bump and, or a pothole was just like painful on the drive home. But I've done blood play scenes where I've bottomed for blood play scenes and then turned around and topped. But I also, again, I am not the norm. Yeah, that's going to be my nickname. Write it on my tombstone. She was not the norm.
I think if it's a new thing that I'm trying for me, that's when I get that endorphin high. If I've done it a few times, it's not as much. But always for the first time, whenever I try a new kink or a new thing, I drop into subspace really hard and it's harder for me to get out of it. After that, I'm okay. Like the second or third time I do it, it's not a problem.
Aftercare and accountability. These post-scene check-ins are really important, not just for the emotional support, but for discussing what worked and what didn't work in the scene because you need that ongoing education and self-awareness. You need if you're the top, you need the bottom to tell you what worked and didn't work. Responsible kinksters never stop learning. There's one of the phrases I absolutely hate when people are like, well, I don't need any more learning. I'm constantly learning.
I already know all this stuff. I
Right?
can do it.
Even I, who am doing needles, and I am the teacher of the needles, and I am the demo top of the needles, I'm still taking needle classes because there's still stuff I haven't done yet. I finally got the opportunity to stick needles in a dick, and that was fun. I enjoyed it. I will be doing it again. Thank you very much. Next up is doing needles in vulva. That's my next goal.
Okay, not me.
Yeah. No, I didn't think you were volunteering,
Nope.
honey. I did not.
Nope.
The day you come to me and let me put even a single needle on you, I will probably very close to death because that's what you'll give me as the gift before I die.
I think that's your birthday present next year. That's what we were talking about, right?
Oh, when I'm 60?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's this year. Even better. Not that far away.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that is
This
this year.
year.
That's like in 6 months. God damn it.
I had somebody last night who was asking me about like how I got started and all this, and we were talking, and I was explaining that I'm the dive head first into the deep end, and I said, and part of that is because I'm older, and they were so very confidently and cocky said, well, you're not older than me, and
Oh,
I
boy.
looked at him, I said, yes, I am, and he got again very confidently with his whole chest said, no, you're not, and I looked at him, I said, I bet you I am. How old are you? And he
said
looked
50,
at me,
right?
he goes, 47.
Seriously? There's a shit ton of people that are older than that at the club.
And I looked at him and I went, I'm 59. And he just stopped dead in his tracks and he goes, all right, well, whatever it is you're doing, you just keep doing that.
That's the second person that said that to you. I've been getting a lot of compliments from very, very flamboyant people. One of them was a trans girl at the grocery store, 6 foot tall, really, really. And she called me Beyonce because apparently the way that I pulled my sunglasses off and flipped my hair when I walked in was very Beyonce maneuver.
You have flipping hair. It's the toss.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing toss. I am not pink.
I toss.
I'm not tossing. But
Just gives
anyway,
me a headache if I do it too
and
hard.
then another person, I was coming out of like the freaking UPS store and I got, oh, girl, slay. I love your blouse. And I'm like, yes, it's making my fucking day.
I know somebody sent me something. The coloring book. They had gotten the coloring book.
Mhm.
And I was like, and they were telling me how much they loved it. I said, yes, praise Kink activated. So I feel like, all joking aside, if we look at safe.
Well, we can't do that.
I know, just for a minute. Can I say
Okay.
just one non-joking thing?
Okay, fine. I'll shut up.
If we look at safe as a 4-letter word that we should not use, I just think we'll all be safer.
Okay, so adding 2 letters, 1 letter onto
Oh
it makes
my
it
God,
okay.
are you okay?
No, I had a stroke 10 minutes ago. I told you. An hour ago during the episode I was talking about.
Well, because everything can be made safer, right? Cars are made safer through airbags, through seatbelts, through speed limits. All of that is made safer, but they're never safe.
I mean, good point.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
We grew up in an era where we rode our bicycles and we didn't wear helmets.
I didn't. I think that stopped in the 80s.
Okay, I did.
Right.
But I miss
Listen.
my banana seats because those are so much more comfortable.
There is a video of me at 4 years old wearing, those old school roller skates that you put on the shoes. I was wearing a helmet, elbow pads, knee pads, holding my mother's arm for dear life, and I'm skating, and I fell right on my ass on the cement. And my dad's laughing. My mom's like, okay, come on, get up. And I said, I need butt pads.
You grew them.
Yeah, I have a gadonk now.
Yeah, now you're fine.
But it still hurts when I land on my ass.
I'm sure it does, right?
The bruise on my ass from falling down the stairs was pretty significant.
But now we have bicycle helmets. Little kids who are not even riding scooters unless they've got the helmets, the elbow pads, and the knee pads. Because again, we've made it safer, but we haven't made it safe.
No, nothing is completely safe.
So that's my point. That's why saying just adding the R, safer, is acceptable, but just saying it's safe is not.
It makes it no longer a 4-letter word, quite literally, because it's 5 letters.
That's my point.
See, it didn't have a stroke that time.
There you go. Yay, the brain kicked in. Woohoo!
It does that occasionally.
Occasionally. But I shouldn't talk because mine's not much better, especially Sunday after dungeon night.
No, I don't know how you do that. I can't schedule after Risque anymore because I'm like fucking ready to die.
You just can't get out of bed and drive over here.
No, I'll throw up. At this point, it's so bad. Like, the hangover afterwards is so bad. I didn't have alcohol hangovers as bad as dungeon hangovers. I never had an alcohol hangover that bad.
But between the fact that, I mean, it's, look, I do needles and I do different kinds. I do teeny, tiny little 25 gauge needles. And then on Cindy last night, I did 16 gauge needles. They're bigger, a lot bigger. Like this is so bad. I pulled the needle out and I looked at it and I said out loud, damn, that's big.
And what was Cindy's reaction to that?
She just laughed at me.
Ugh.
Listen, I put it in and she goes, all right, that felt a little tighter. Like
that's what she
said. I
said.
swear to God, she's got no feelings in her back because I could just stick needles in and barely. But then she did finally go, you feel the endorphins on this.
Oh, well, finally.
So, right. So what I do, like the risks involved in the 16 gauge needle.
16-inch?
Sorry. The risks involved in the 16 gauge needle are much, much greater than the risks involved in the 25.
I just had a little vomit.
Sorry, I know. 25 gauge needle. Now, some overlap. The idea that they could pass out is the same. The idea of an infection is not necessarily the same because we're talking about a tiny little hole versus a bigger hole. Poor Dara. The risk of Dara passing out as I continue this discussion is growing
it's
and
getting
growing
more
and
more.
growing.
Do I have any color in my face right now?
Yes, white.
It's the absence.
Very white.
No, actually, wait. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, shut up.
You've turned whiter.
Yeah.
And I love being careful so that I can, my running joke with people, I like tell them the signs to look out for infection. And then I was jokingly say, but nobody's ever gotten infection from my needles. Don't ruin my perfect record.
Ooh. By the way, I think this is also partially I'm freezing to death down here.
Oh, it is really fucking cold. I am an ice cube myself.
I can't feel my toes.
I've lost all feeling in my toes. Notice my hands keep sliding further and further into my sweatshirt.
I'm wearing a coat, for fuck's sake. You're like, the only reason I don't have the heater on is because I'm at 2%.
Oh no.
So I used it all already.
I'm sorry. Well, I'll try to hurry up and finish up so that we can get you back into warmth.
Thank you.
The risk of Dara freezing to death in the dungeon.
Which one's going to happen first? Freeze to death or pass out from needle talk?
Oh,
we
let's
don't know.
Try it.
No, let's not.
Yes. I'm willing to take that risk. I will be risk aware.
I am not. Thank you.
Damn, I don't
Wrap
have
it up,
consent.
Buttercup.
I don't have consent. Fucking shit.
Implied or otherwise. No explicit.
No.
Nothing.
All right, I'll wrap it up, okay? Safe is
like a condom.
Which, by the way, there's risks involved with condoms. I am proof that sometimes they don't work.
Hey, guess what?
What?
Guess who found out they were allergic to latex that way?
Oh, ow.
Talk about not knowing.
Sympathy pain.
It was great.
My poor pussy's going, no.
Yours?
That's what I'm saying. It's sympathy pain.
Oh, my God.
Like when you talk about hitting ball. Oh, I had a guy
Having
last night
hives
ask.
inside your vagina? No, thank you.
I did have a guy ask last night, just point blank, come up to me and go, hey, would you hit my nuts?
Okay.
I'm like, no.
I'm busy.
But if you keep up that attitude, I might. But, I
might kick you in the nuts.
Really. Safe is misleading. Kink is inherently risky. And you will be best served if you just go into everything assuming risk. Use rack. Use prick. Fucking shit, use crash. Because they're all better frameworks for understanding the risks involved and identifying how to mitigate those risks. Make sure you are prioritizing education, communication, and responsibility. And I'm going to say this for the people in the back. The responsibility to identify risks and mitigate them is not just the dom and tops. I'm sorry, am I too loud for you?
That's a lot.
Because I really want to emphasize this.
I'm so glad I'm not wearing headphones.
No, the bottom, the submissive, you are equally responsible for helping to mitigate risks. And you do that by understanding yourself and your own body, by communicating information to your top and dom so that they can be prepared. And 3, use your goddamn fucking safe word.
Yeah, I'm going to crawl back under the table now. Thank you. Oh, wait, no, I better not do that.
No, because you'll pee. And it'll take you way too long to get out from underneath there. You won't fit as nicely under the table as I will.
What are you saying exactly?
I'm tinier than you.
Yeah. You're short stack.
I'm stacked and I'm short. Absolutely.
Yeah, short stacked.
That's right. So I am curious your thoughts on this. And by you, I mean the listeners. I already know Dars. Do you have any personal experiences where you feel the word safe was inappropriate? Do you talk to others about the fact that they should not use the word safe? Are you going to stop using the word safe?
If you do use it, please don't do it within Rah-Rah's hearing.
No.
Because you will lose yours.
I can be quiet.
I mean, seriously. Fuck! Come on!
Oh, safe!
Okay. Way to go.
Sorry. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of our fun and educational content. New episodes drop every Friday.
If you love what we do and want to help us keep creating, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast. You can also support our affiliates to benefit small businesses and us at the same time.
No extra cash? No problem. You can still help by spreading the word about your favorite kinky podcast. Share us with your friends, and don't forget to rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Those 5-star reviews mean the world to us. And those 5-star reviews go a long way in boosting our podcast through the algorithm and reaching more listeners.
Sign up for our Pink Kink Institute classes. Shop at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique. Stay connected with us on social media. You'll find all the links on our link tree posted in the show notes.
Your support means the world to us. So until next time, stay pink
and level up your kink knowledge.